She's absent. I think she might be joining us later remotely. Todd Godby,
Here.
Terry Stoops,
Here.
Lynn Kroger,
Here.
Cheryl Turner,
Here.
Jamie Falconberry, Bruce Friend,
Here.
Rita Hare,
Here.
Hilda Parlay,
Present.
John Eldridge,
Here.
and Eric Sanchez.
Here.
All right, we have a quorum and we are ready to begin. Chair.
Good morning, and welcome to the CSAP meeting of the month of December of 2021. If Mr. Godby could lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
It is the mission of the Sugar Creek, Lord have mercy, of the Charter School Advisory Board works to ensure the existence of high-quality charter schools in North Carolina. Board members are reminded that it is our duty to avoid conflicts of interest and the appearance of conflicts of interest as we handle the work of the advisory board. Does any member of the advisory board know of any conflict of interest or any appearance of a conflict with respect to any matters coming before this meeting? I will be recusing from Go Big and Movement. If so, please state them for the record. If during the course of the meeting you become aware of an actual or apparent conflict of interest, please bring the matter to the attention of the chair. It will then be your duty to abstain from participating in discussion on the matter and voting on the matter. Okay, so we need to approve the minutes from the December meeting. Does anybody have any changes?
The November meeting.
From the this is December. From the November meeting, does anybody have any changes to any corrections? I have one. Ashley, under Center Point, the very last comment, somebody asked about the contract, similar contract, and I said that National Heritage Academy does the same thing with the surplus, but it's also, I also said that they assume the liability, so they take any losses, and that's a significant difference. So I think it needs to be noted in the minutes.
Okay.
And mine were minor. More graphical.
All right. So can I get a motion to approve the minutes as amended?
Madam Chair, this is Hilda Parlay, and I move that we approve the November 2021 meeting minutes as amended.
Second.
I'll second that motion.
It's been properly moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Great. All right. Our agenda for this meeting is before you. Are there any changes to the agenda? In that case, can I get a motion to? Yes.
Okay, we can actually remove the closed session that was added, I think at 10 a.m.
Okay.
So, yeah, we can remove that.
All right.
Okay, this is Lynn Kroger. I move that we approve the agenda as amended.
Can I get a second?
I'll second.
It's been properly moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Okay. Then we are ready, Ms. Vaquero, for the amendments.
We have several today. So let's start with the easier of the lot. We have two weighted lottery ones, and the first is Franklin School of Innovation. This is a charter school in Asheville. They opened in 2015. They are currently in their 8th year, serving grades 5 to 12, and they have over 700 students enrolled. Over half of their students are educationally disadvantaged, and they are going to implement a weighted lottery. They are trying to increase diversity across all grade levels, not just the entry grade level. And so they have set a goal of 50% by 2025 of economically disadvantaged students. They also talk about in their materials how they are prioritizing professional learning, specifically math, and trying to narrow academic achievement gaps in that subject. They have provided transportation from their first year and are committed to expanding this service specifically to low-income neighborhoods. They have expanded their school nutrition program, including adding a breakfast, and they have added to their math faculty aligned with their goal of improving math and closing that academic achievement gap. They are a C school, and I think that's all I have for them. Any questions on their weighted lottery?
Just a technicality for the record, if they opened in 2015, is this not their 6th year of operations?
Oh, I don't know, I'm just going, that's true, yeah, I'm going by the cover letter, but I might have
It's their 8th
to,
year?
yeah, I'll ask them about that.
Okay.
Okay, we're voting on them individually?
Yes.
Okay, any questions, any discussion on Franklin School of Innovation's weighted lottery? Hearing none, can I get a motion?
I move that we approve Franklin School of Innovation's request to implement a weighted lottery.
I'll second that.
It's been properly moved and seconded. Do we need to take a roll call vote?
I don't think for this one.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
All right, unanimous. All right, we have one more weighted lottery. This is Next Generation Academy. They are a new school. They just opened in 2018 and are a fairly new school. They serve just a couple hundred of K-3 students, so it's a fairly small school. They are in Greensboro. They currently enroll 329, and 78% of them are economically disadvantaged. Their goal, due to they have already a very high level of economically disadvantaged students, so their goal is quite high to enroll 95% economically disadvantaged students by the 2024 school year. They have been awarded over $1 million from DPI for the 21st Century Community Learning Center grant, and those funds will support programming and services including transportation, meals, academic and social emotional needs for economically disadvantaged students.
Any questions on New Generations, or Next Generation's weighted lottery request? Hearing none, can I get a motion?
This is Mr. Franz. I'll make a motion that we accept the request for weighted lottery.
Second.
It's been properly moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
All right, passes unanimously. All right, so we are going to go into our enrollment and expansion request this year. For those of you new to the board, this occurs every year after the CSADM opens. So for our listeners, the CSADM is the charter school ADM system, and this is where charter schools will go in and project what they plan to enroll for the next school year. This helps with the entire budgeting process. It helps with a lot of the inner workings of DPI in terms of knowing what enrollment will be like at our charter schools. And when this happens, we have schools that will request an amendment, which basically means that they need to request approval to go over what is already statutorily allowed for enrollment or for grade expansion, or in the case of a couple of our schools today, for both enrollment and grade expansion. So these can get a little complicated. I've tried to make them make it as easy as possible to understand, and we usually bring these in a group to state board each year. That's just the way it's been done since I've been here. So I'm going to start with the enrollment growth greater than 30%. So according to statute, a school that is not low performing can grow up to 30% the next year. If a school would like to grow more than 30% of its first month ADM from this year to next year, then they have to request that from the state board. And the state board may approve it only if it finds all of the following. So the state board has the opportunity, obviously, to reject or approve these, but the school has to meet these 5 criteria because it is statutory. There's really no wiggle room there. So the first one is that the actual enrollment of the charter school is within 10% of its max authorized enrollment. So that means basically that the school needed to be within 10% of its projection in its actual ADM. So if a school really over or under, usually it's over, projects, that can put them in a bad spot because they will not be able to make this request. The charter school has commitments for 90% of requested maximum growth. There's no black and white terms in terms of what we need to see for this. It's really just objective evidence in terms of, do they have wait lists? Do they have demand? Do they have survey data about siblings that may attend? Some of our schools provide saturation data in the county, all of those things. The school is not currently identified as low performing, so the school obviously knows that, but we also check that in the system. The charter school meets generally accepted standards of fiscal management, so a charter school cannot request this if they have any financial issues. And they are, at the time of this increase, substantially in compliance with state, federal law, bylaws, and the charter agreement. So if there's any compliance issues that we are aware of, they can't make this request either. So the first request I have for you is Cardinal Charter Academy at Wendell Falls. This school just opened, I believe, last year, 2021. Yeah, that's last year. My years are getting mixed up. So we do not have any data for them, but therefore they are not low performing. They have no compliance issues, so they are eligible to make this request. And what they're specifically requesting, they can grow up to 965 without approval from 934. And they are requesting to go, they can go to 934. They're requesting to go to 965. So they're requesting an addition of 31 students, and it's a total of 32.4% increase in ADM. So again, they can go 30%, no problem. They don't even have to ask for that, but they're asking to go 32.4%.
And in their first year, they enrolled 900 kids?
No, their ADM this year is 719. So yeah, in their first year, I don't know what they had their first year, but this year, their second year, they had 719.
Okay, and the 30% would have taken them to 934?
Exactly.
Okay, or 32.
Yep. And then, so next year, they would like to go to 965, which would be 32.4%.
And they're adding a grade.
Yes.
Also, correct?
Oh, they also are adding a grade.
Yeah, and they, there's a lot, I know there's a lot of information submitted with these requests. But yes, they will add, currently they are, K through 7. So next year they would add 8. And they will not, that's their capacity for grades. They're gonna be K to 8.
Do they say how they plan to distribute these extra? So some of the kids will be the kids that they're adding a grade.
Right.
But probably not 200 plus kids. So have they said are they growing the number of classes they have per grade, or what?
They're growing in all the classes, I believe. And they also have submitted, they had a wait list this year of 422 students.
Oh, okay.
And they provided a lot of information about the area, the town of Wendell, including information about 7,000 under construction and approved housing developments there, or houses there. So they basically are, they've presented a lot of information about the actual
Are they
Wendell.
actually located in Wendell?
I believe so.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
I remember schools had a hard time trying to even locate in Wendell.
Yeah. They're in Wendell. Their current facility, it's on Taylor Road in Wendell. It has a max capacity of 765 students, so they are adding an additional building to that property. And it will include an additional office, cafeteria space. They've included the site plan and additional information, budget information in their materials, and their financials all look really good. So that's, and I'm thinking we might want to vote on each one separate because some of them are quite complicated.
Is that a build out? Is that like a new build that they're doing, or like, my concern is, you know, how much time it's been taking for people to get buildings built.
Yeah, I believe it is. And they're, you know, they seem to, you know, feel like it's on track, that they would be fine to, open. There's also the chance, which you'll hear from a school today, that made this request last year, and their building did get delayed, and so they're back this year to make that delay. So, worst case scenario, something happens and they have to delay, they just go back into the CSADM, and they can, in that final projection, they can lower that
My concern
projection.
is that they will have already recruited the children.
That's true.
Because people are doing their, you know, starting in January, most people are doing their recruiting and accepting, and we don't go back into CSADM until June.
Let me see, there might be someone on the line, because I've asked the people associated with all of the enrollment and expansion requests to attend, so let me see if there's someone online that can speak more to the construction process. Is there someone from, Cardinal Charter Academy on the line? I don't see any.
You know, obviously, this is a Charter School USA school. They do have their own
So have some
Building.
capacity.
division, so I would say that this is I would be comfortable that this would be able to get done in time.
Or they'll have a plan B. Any other discussion on Cardinal Charter?
I may have missed this. But did you give an overview of their academic history?
They don't have academic data because they began,
2018.
last year, so with the pandemic data, there's no official data that we have.
If there's no further discussion, can I get a motion?
This is Mr. Friend. I'll make a motion that we accept the request for expanding beyond 30% next year.
Near the police seconds.
It's been properly moved in second. Any discussion? Do you need roll call votes for
Yeah, I'm
these?
just grabbing.
Okay.
All right, I'm gonna take a roll call vote. Bruce Friend,
Aye.
Todd Godby,
Aye.
Terry Stoops,
Aye.
Lynn Kroger,
Aye.
Cheryl Turner,
Aye.
Rita Hare,
Aye.
Hilda Parlay,
Aye.
John Eldridge,
Aye.
Eric Sanchez.
Aye.
All right. It passes. Okay. The next request we have is from Kip Durham. And yes, I do see Mr. Saint Sing on here, so I'm gonna introduce it, and then if you have any questions, he can explain a little bit further. So Kip Durham is a school operating not too far from here in Durham. They are serving grades 5 through 8 currently, and their 21 to 22 ADM was 351. They are requesting an increase of the approved 456 to 550. So this is a 56.7% increase. And they are not currently identified as low performing, and they have they're eligible through the compliance and all of the other requirements we look at. Now, this school is also requesting a grade expansion and a grade change, actually. So let me pull up this to make it easier to understand. Sorry, guys.
We're gonna try to dim the lights a little bit without going in the
Yeah,
dark.
that would help.
Yes. There we go. That's good.
Oh, yes, thank you.
That's good.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Much better.
screen's a little bit slower, it should show up in a second. Showing up on mine.
And it says reviewing your screen, so it lies.
Yeah. All right, well, hopefully it will show up in a second, but, so Kip is asking for an increase in enrollment and a grade expansion and change. So what they seek to do next year, again, they're currently serving 5, 6, 7, and 8th grade. They want to grow from the bottom up, K to 1. So they want to add K to 1, which is 2 grade levels at a there we go, which is 2 grade levels at a time and also requires state board approval. So any grade expansion more than 1 year at a time requires state board approval. So they are coming both for enrollment and expansion. So as you can see in the 22-23, the second year row down there, they would like to add K and 1 next year. And then they are getting rid, or they are seeking to remove their 5th grade. Which, as you can see, they have no 4th grade, so they won't, it's not like they will be, removing
So no
kids from
kids
the
to go
actual
there.
school. And they talk a lot in their materials about why they're making that change. One is that there's a high demand for K and 1 students in that area. The closest charter school just down the street, Maureen Joy, usually has a waiting list of, last year it was 180 students. I know from previous years it can be hundreds of students at that school. And so there's a high demand there for schools in that level. And then they also really want to focus on improving the middle school. And they've had hard time recruiting 5th graders because parents are reluctant to take a 5th grader out of a K to 6 school or a K to 5 school and bring them to a new school their last year of elementary. So instead they would start K to 1, focus on their middle school, 6, 7, 8, and then each year they would build up their classes until you can see there 26 to 27, they'd be fully expanded from K to 8. And I know Tim is on the line if you have any specific questions that I have not provided for you.
Ashley, I just want to clarify, they're only going to 510? I think you had said 550, but look at the numbers. So it's only at 45%, or am I missing something?
No, I have, let's see, I have in, 510. I might have, 550 might have been in the CSADM system, but it looks like 510 in here.
Okay.
Tim, can you confirm that it's 510 you'd like to go to?
Yeah, Ashley. Good morning, everybody. It's good to be with y'all. The reason we did 510, and which is different than what's in CSADM,
Okay.
is because we did not know whether or not we get approval to remove that 5th grade for next year. So we included all of that enrollment in 5th grade next year with the anticipation of removing it, which is this application. So those two things are a little different.
Okay.
So our motion would be for the 510,
For the 510, yeah.
which is only 45%.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I think their rationale sounds pretty solid. And I can see this as being a strategy to build a strong foundation for their school, for their middle school particularly. And they have no 4th graders, so you would have to recruit an entire class of 5th graders. Probably not a good idea at the end of the pandemic either.
Well, and you're getting rid of a grade level and adding 2, so are they really requesting 2 grade level expansion?
Or just 1?
Yeah,
just
really,
one.
they're really only expanded by 1. Yeah, that's true, because they're nixing 5.
Yeah, we talked about that as an office, but anything non-consecutive is considered, the way the statute's written, is considered a request.
Any other discussion?
Will it require separate votes for the grades and the enrollments?
That's a good question.
You can do the KIP ones together if you'd like.
Okay.
Yeah, I think if we do it school by school, that's fine.
Ashley, how long have they been operating?
They open, I believe, 7 years. They've been operating for 7 years.
I'm wondering, I may have missed this, why, especially in the last year, 26, 27, are they K through 5 90, 6 through 8 120? Did I miss something there in terms of how they, and then backfilling 30 people in that?
That's really not unusual, honestly, to grow at sixth grade, because there's always such a demand for sixth grade, because kids are moving anyway, so if parents are looking for middle school. We do the same thing. We go from 6 classes to 8 classes at sixth grade.
I'm not jealous of you.
Yeah, and traditionally we've added about 60 kids in between the 5th and 6th grade every year.
Class sizes get so much bigger too.
If there's no further discussion, can I get a motion?
I move that we approve Kip Durham's grade modification and enrollment expansion request.
Second.
Nice.
Been properly moved and seconded. Any discussion? Mr. Stu? Hearing none. Ashley, you want to take a roll call?
Yes, ma'am. Bruce Friend,
Aye.
Todd Nobby,
Aye.
Terry Stoops,
Aye.
Lynn Kroger,
Aye.
Open an email.
Cheryl Turner,
Aye.
Rita Hare,
Aye.
Hilda Parlay,
Approved.
John Eldridge,
Approved.
Eric Sanchez.
Approved.
All right, passes unanimously. Tim, I will be in touch regarding state board next month, okay?
Thanks, everyone. Appreciate it.
All right, thank you.
I'm gonna open the thing back up.
I'm not going to.
All right, we have a couple more. So I'm going to, the next one is Tolera. I'm gonna pull up those materials too so you can see that.
But I'll just-
All right, so the next one is Tolera, and I believe most of you are familiar with Tolera. It's a new school. It just opened this year in Mecklenburg County. It is serving K to 3, and they started out the request with, expressing some of the goals they've met this year in their first year of operation despite the pandemic. They've enrolled 248 students versus what they projected of 240. Their weighted lottery, they set a goal of 13% and they've met it with 19%. They have purchased 4 school buses. They have 2 routes in service, and they're working on adding another in the coming weeks. They have secured recognition from DPI as a school food authority, so they're now operating the school lunch program. They broke ground on construction for a new facility to open next year. And they are in financial operational compliance and not designated as low performing. Of course, we don't have any data, like real data, or data that we can use for accountability reasons. So they are asking for both, there's a couple requests. They're asking for enrollment expansion over 30% and more than 1 grade year at a grade level at a time. So this is another one that's asking for enrollment and grade expansion. They also are requesting National School Lunch Program approval. That is something that just, by the way it was written, anyone that wants to change their lunch program, any charter school that wants to change its lunch program must seek state board approval. So that's kind of bundled in this request as well. So let's take a look at what they're currently enrolling and what they want to enroll. You can see year 1, that's this year, they have 240 students, K through 3. They are approved in their current application to add 1 grade level and to bring their enrollment to 309. They are seeking to bring that enrollment to 528, which is a large increase. Let's see, I believe it is a 134% increase in the ADM that I had in CS ADM, which is 226. So again, the percents and the numbers I work with are in the CS ADM system because that's what school business has. Sometimes it's a little different from what's put in the documents because the ADM might be changing and fluctuating at the school. But in any event, you can see that it's a large increase. And then they would like to add several grade levels. So they would like to add 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th, and just expand completely out through middle school. They've supplied information regarding what they believe shows the demand for these number of students, including survey results from siblings in the school, from families in the school. They've also talked about how they are budgeting for this, but because it is such a large increase, I wanted Mr. Ronak to be able to speak to you today about that, and he is on the line. I can see him right now, Mr. Botts, and so he can answer any of your questions about this. Mr. Bott, you can unmute and maybe speak a little bit about why such a large increase and how you feel the demand is there.
Thank you, Ms. Vaquero. This is Ronak Bott here. Hopefully everybody can hear me okay. Thank you for bringing this forward to CSAB. One question that we've been fielding from our families, even when we started recruiting for our elementary grades, is when are you going to open a middle school? Will you have middle school grades? And we've just been kind of saying, look, let us get our school open before we can even think about that. Let's make sure that we're off to a good start. But we know that it's really important for a lot of our parents because they want a place that their children can continue. They have multiple siblings that right now they're often driving them to different schools, and it's a hardship for them. And then, of course, there's many, many parents that don't have younger kids but are attracted to our model and would like to see it implemented for their middle school age children. So, once we did get off to what we felt was a successful opening, we launched this survey to both our currently enrolled families in the broader community to understand, look, is there actually a demand for these higher grades? And honestly, I was frankly surprised by some of the results. I didn't know that we'd be able to, say, fill in a 5th grade, because I figured, many parents wouldn't want to move a child for a terminal year of elementary school. But I think having that continuation into middle school is a real draw. And so even the survey results had, 88 students showing interest in a 5th grade. In fewer students in the successive years, and understandably an 8th grade would be smaller. But we were pleased to see that demand and wanted to make a request to CSAB to see if we can help give these families what they want. We're also luckily in a position where the new construction that we've already broken ground on will have space to house the middle school. And so, if we can fill that out sooner, it certainly helps the school financials and does, allows us to create a more robust program with better support services for all the students if we can go ahead and do that now.
Wow, okay. I have really mixed feelings about this one. We really gave Tolera a hard time in Ready to Open. They wanted to expand their numbers in Ready to Open, and we said no. But they met the numbers that they said they could meet. But this is huge.
New school.
Yeah, and Mr. Bott, can you talk a little bit about what your middle school would look like in terms of instruction?
We have, a similar program to what we have in the elementary grades, right, where we do have a focus on our curriculum has a combination of math based on art of problem solving. So it's Beast Academy in elementary grades, and they have sort of a more traditional algebra, geometry, trigonometry, algebra 2's trigonometry sequence in middle and high school. For the humanities, we are adopting a little bit of a hybrid between some classical school elements as well as something called Big History. I'm not sure if many of you have heard of it, but it's a way of integrating science and history together in an overarching narrative. I'm not sure, Ms. Turner, if that addresses your question or if you'd like more details.
What about staffing? How are you planning to staff the middle school?
So it will be another big push, just like we had, this year, right? So we had to hire we have a staff of about 30 this year that joined our elementary school, and we anticipate needing another 20 to 23 to fill out the middle school, or middle school plus upper elementary here, in terms of growth and staffing to fill that. So we probably have between 3 to 4 faculty per grade level. That's our model for lower elementary, and then the upper middle school may be a little bit lower in the beginning because it's not fully built out in the first year.
So in middle school you've got certification issues by specialization. So how are you planning to address that?
So at elementary level we have specialization is not a certification issue so much, but our goal had been to hire certified teachers, and we are probably around 95+% certified teachers at elementary level, and we'd have a similar expectation at the middle school level.
Mr. Bott, will you be hiring a middle school principal?
We will.
Sure, can I ask one clarification from you? So I've always known it to be this process in which you can basically get around applying for another school, and we did it. Like, we added a high school and an elementary school by just adding grade level. Kip Durham just did it. How is this different? Because you talked about it.
Well, no, you can add a grade a year, all the way through high school. I think Office of Charter Schools does require, if you're going into high school, to at least present what your curriculum's going to look like based on the issues we had with the school that didn't have a high school curriculum. So that's still totally legit. You can do that. The issue here is that they are asking to do more than a grade a year.
Because they want to do it all at once.
Right.
That's why you're saying.
Right. That's why they need an amendment. Right.
Okay.
It may just be me, but I can't, looking at that chart, I can't tell, what do they currently have again?
K through 3.
K through 3.
240.
So year 2 is year 2 next year then?
Yes. So next year they would have,
Instead of the 309 at the top,
they would have that 528 at the bottom, and they would be K8.
Oh, year 2 is next year?
Yes.
Yeah. So they're adding 5th grade through 8th grade basically next year.
They're adding 4th grade.
And 4th was
And 4th
natural.
grade will be your rising.
The rising, yeah, so they'll be adding 5 through 8, yeah.
Mr. Bott, does your current facility accommodate the new grades?
Not the current facility. We're in a leased space right now, but we're building a new facility which will accommodate the new grades.
And what's the completion date?
It'll be July 2022, and we have some flexibility in our current facility to extend if we need to as well.
Can you extend and accommodate 500 kids?
No, we could not accommodate 500 kids if we extend. I mean, just in our current facility, no.
So if you recruit these kids in March and April, and the building's not done, then what?
Well, we would know before March or April, right, timing-wise for our building, if anything was to go wrong. But we would develop a contingency plan. If this was approved, we would be spending the early part of 2022 developing a contingency plan for extra space, right? So the space we have leased in our current building would not accommodate 500 students, but there are additional spaces in our current building, and we could start discussions about leasing some of those if we had this approval.
What will be the capacity of the building that you're constructing?
It is designed to be a full K-8. It could fit probably 700 students based on square footage or more, but with our model, we wouldn't want to go up that high.
I think they should have a contingency plan in works rather than waiting.
Yeah, I would highly encourage you, if this is approved, to have preliminary talks with your current leaseholder for that extra space. People are finding
Absolutely.
that buildings aren't going up as fast as people had hoped. And you don't always know, you don't know until you get to, there's time for you need the roofing or whatever the new thing is, and then you find out it's delayed or back ordered or whatever. And so you might not know, the timeline might look fine and not work. So I would, if this is approved, I would really encourage you to start those conversations with your current leaseholder so that possibility has been discussed in advance.
Good feedback. We will do it as soon as we, if we do get the recommendation, that will be one of the first calls I make.
Could we make the submission of a contingency plan a condition of approval?
We absolutely can.
Given their ability to slowly increase in their current facility because they can ask for more space and slowly do that, they may have said this, but why so ambitiously just this whole pocket of kids? Why aren't they thinking 2 grade levels at a time, or whatever it is? Has that been said, or should I ask?
Well, I think what Ms. Vaquero said in their application, what they said, and I think Mr. Bott said it too, they're basing this on survey data that they received mostly, I think, from their own parents. And the parents currently have children in these grades that they would like to send to school if the grades were available.
Do they have data to support that?
They have survey data, they said. Mr. Bott, where did your survey data come from?
We conducted a survey, an online survey in November of 2021, both from our existing families as well as the broader community, to come up with the number of students that would be interested in each of these particular grade levels.
But how many siblings does it impact, which is more to the point of the immediacy and the urgency of now?
I don't have that breakdown at my fingertips. I'd say probably at least half of the demand is from siblings.
That's quite extraordinary.
Yeah. I have a question for the Office of Charter Schools. Have we previously approved an expansion of this size or type? Do you recall?
Not that I'm aware of, no. And my personal opinion, this would be a very heavy lift to get through State Board of Ed. Maybe a more controlled growth would be better than expanding all the way to 8th grade, but that's just my opinion.
Yeah, I was thinking maybe expand to 5th this year, and then you'd automatically be moving into middle school. So then you'd only be asking for 2 years of growth the next year to add 7th and 8th. I honestly have mixed emotions about this one because we really have given the school a hard time, and every time they've done what they said they were going to do. And so,
Mr. Machado, Mrs. Turner, if I might suggest maybe a compromise here. If we took out the 8th grade expansion request, which is a smaller number to be sure anyway, and that does really start to get into more difficult questions about transitions to high school and summer advanced courses. We do have really significant demand and interest from parents for kids in 5th, 6th, and 7th grade. So I would really, humbly request that the board consider, granting the expansion through 7th. I think we could very easily take 8th grade 8 down or remove the 8th grade expansion request and still be able to satisfy the vast majority of our families, if that's something this board would look at.
Will the request have to be rewritten? Madame Vaquero?
You could approve it with that change, and then I could work with Ronak on getting materials updated for State Board.
I feel a lot more comfortable. I don't know if it has to come back if what Terry said with regard to a contingency plan. So that before sending it to the State Board, that we feel confident, given the contingency plan and the change in the grade level, that it's a more solid plan.
Does this have to go to State Board next month? Could we ask them to come back next month with the change in grade level and the contingency plan, and then we would send it to State Board the following month?
I believe it was we could do that. I believe, Mr. Bott had a specific, or Dr. Bott had a specific reason for bringing it now.
Can you speak to
Timeline
that?
wise?
What is the reason?
Yeah, can you speak to
Yes, Ms. Vaquero, I mean, we'd obviously like to know sooner rather than later, you know, if this is a go or not, because we've got to run at light speed to make it happen, right? So, would it be possible to make a recommendation contingent on revising for the removal of the grade 8 expansion and providing information on a contingency plan for the space? And then that would not set us back on timing to get through the state board, you know, starting next month.
Well, the reason I asked about making the changes and giving us the time to approve it is the confidence of sending it to the state board, because what's the contingency plan if the state board says no?
Our contingency plan?
Yeah,
I mean,
like,
then we don't,
you've got
then we
these,
don't do
you've
it,
got
right?
these middle school classes that are being built into the building. I know part of this is fiscal responsibility with getting a number of students in there, but if the state board says that's too many, how does that impact your budget and your plans? That's why I brought up, if, you know, we send it up with a contingency plan already there that the state board could review instead of hoping that there is a good contingency plan, that you can avoid any scrutiny from them.
I think we could make
So,
a recommendation with the contingency plan, and that this contingency plan would have to be in time for it to go to the state
For
board.
to go to the
For it
state
to go to
board.
the state board, so it would be attached as
Okay,
it went to the state
that
board.
makes sense, yeah.
Yes, I think we're on the same page.
Yeah,
Yes.
that makes sense there.
I will say that having worked with this school over the last couple years and through RTO, our office has never had a problem with them submitting things on time and being really responsive, which isn't always the case. So you could definitely make your approval with the specific grade levels you're approving contingent upon our office receiving a thorough contingency plan for the facility and whatever else you would like.
I could be comfortable with that.
I'm comfortable with that.
Can I ask a question? With this contingency plan, are you still approving them through 8th grade?
No, through seventh,
just through
through
seventh.
seventh.
Through 7th grade?
We would approve through seventh, and then with a contingency plan for space.
And what would that enrollment number be?
That's still a
What's
whole
on their
lot of
chart?
kids.
Minus 24.
You're only talking about, 24 kids.
Yeah,
Still
it would be
about
524. I mean,
It would be 504.
But given past history from what you said and what Ashley just said about getting stuff in, I don't know that, I think that's just on them to do that. I think
Yeah.
they've proven that they've done it in the past, so it's not the first time.
I know, but they're not around 20 years.
No,
It's just-
they've
right.
only had one
It's
year.
just 1 year.
Right.
That is-
Obviously, they've demonstrated.
Wait, can I ask?
Yeah, well, and to Lynn's point, we have approved charters that are open at K-8 and 1,500 kids. This school, ready to open, already said, we have more interest than we anticipated. Can we expand? And we said, no, wait until you get open.
Yeah, I remember that.
They did, and they met the numbers they said they could meet with the waiting list they said they had. So I feel like they can do this. Whether the state board's gonna approve it 100%, and I can't say that I know that that's gonna happen. But I do feel like, it's doable for this school.
Can I?
I do too, and I remember Dr. Bott and his board and their application, it was very strong. It's a very strong board, and I think if any board is capable, they would be. And they have had the support even greater than they anticipated, so I recall that.
And when do we give them a date for the contingency plan?
It'd have to be prior to, once the
Yeah, prior to the state
board.
board, going to state board.
Yeah, but don't we have to give them a date?
It would, oh gosh. Ronak, you would have to get a contingency plan for a facility to our office very soon,
Yeah,
as
we-
in
They
this
need a
week.
date.
We would need that contingency plan before we took it to the EICS committee call, which is always the week before. So we would need it, as
Yeah,
Ashley
ASAP.
said, in the next,
Yeah, it really would be hang up and call the leaseholder.
Can I?
I will
Eric,
get to
you
work
need
as
a
soon
date,
as
though.
soon as we're done here.
They said next.
Eric?
And
Actually, I won't let you down.
What is you made the point a few minutes ago, David, about reluctance from the state board to approve it as is. The proposal as amended is 24 students less.
yeah.
Do you see a similar reluctance?
This is a very well-run school, an excellent board. Ronak is an excellent leader. but at the same time, this is their first year, no data. For the person that has to advocate for this at State Board of Ed, I think it would be a very heavy lift because they have no data. I have confidence in this school, I have confidence in their leader. In my opinion, I think that if you approved them through 5th grade, they have another year to talk about starting a middle school. That's just my opinion.
Can I ask one more question too? With regard to, refresh my memory here, and I'm trying to look it up here. With regard to expansion request, what are the intervals that are allowable? It's like 2 grade levels, you have to get a request, like how is it again?
It's one.
It's one,
One a year.
and then with 2, you have to come here.
Yeah, right.
So to Lynn's point, and Cheryl, you brought this up about we approve schools from the beginning for K-8. But in those cases, we've had the opportunity to review their budgets and their curriculum and every facet of the school. In this case, it's kind of blindly approving. We have to place a lot of trust in them.
I like the idea of 5th and 6th, to be honest. Like they already have a 3rd, so they're gonna grow to 4. And then you add the 2 grades, 5 and 6, and you grow into the 7th and 8th in the following year with the request for 2 more grade levels. It seemed more reasonable for.
And that would drop the request down to what number?
It would remove 24 and 57.
That seems more reasonable, since they're already at K4 if you look.
Right,
Like
essentially.
you almost gotta see it as K4, they're just adding the 5 and 6. And then the following year, you got the 7 and 8.
I believe Bruce wanted to speak. Bruce, are you there?
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate the discussion. I guess the question I have for them is, how are they financing the expansion of the facility? And if it's through external sources, are they going to want to have a say or have any concerns about pulling back on these numbers, whether it's 21 students or 24 students or 81 students? Just curious about if someone's financing the building, what they might be saying about when changing these numbers.
You know, I think, thank you, Mr. Friend. This is Ronak Bott responding. I don't think the 24 students in grade 8 would be material in that calculation. You know, if we start talking about paring down, you know, multiple grades, then yeah, it does become a question of would you build out the entire building or not? You know, that's not an insurmountable problem, but it's something I'd have to. When you start looking at a partial middle school, you just have to start thinking about, you know, when does it make sense to make those facility investments? Can you stage them over time? And, you know, so the plan for that build out might look a little bit different. But I wouldn't put that as a hurdle towards pointing you in the direction of approving one or another set of grades. I think it's really more about the program as opposed to the capital needs of how do we have a robust program with enough staff that, you know, we can kind of meet students where they are, and having a few more grades, I think, helps us do that. And
yeah, I was asking the question with some recent experience of having expanded our campus, and I know the first grades that funded our expansion are keenly interested in making sure that we hit the enrollment numbers that the expansion was that they invested in and funded. So that's probably a discussion with whoever is financing. If they're using outside financing, that they're aware that this would be a scaled back expansion at this point.
Yeah, we do have a bond that's providing our financing for the building, and, you know, the capital build out of individual parts of the building, you know, might be staged differently depending on how many grades we add and when.
Is there a possibility to talk to the construction company or your bond with regard to a phase 1 and a phase 2? Because it sounds to me from listening to Mr. Machado that what I don't want to happen for the school is that you get to the state board and you're ready to go and they say no. So if it was presented in a phase 1, 5th, 6th, and then phase 2 is 6th graders become 7th graders and they roll in. So it might even ease construction constraints if you're only needing to get done what needs to happen for 2 grade levels as opposed to all of them. Is that a possibility?
Well, yeah, it is. The way our building is constructed, they're grade level pairs in different wings. So it's K1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then 6, 7. Right. So that's why I'm hoping to keep 6 and 7 paired together in this package, and grade 8 can kind of it's a little bit easier to let go of. Because we'd have to build out the 7th grade portion even if we were only approved through grade 6 almost, so.
I don't know, what are people thinking?
My thought is that seems to be a strong confidence from the Office of Charter Schools in this school and in what they've done to make sure they hit targets. Is that if their desire is to go to 7th grade and we feel like that they're gonna be able to make that happen, then if with a contingency plan, we send that to the state board and the state board cuts it back to, sorry, you can do 2 but not the other, then, I mean, that gives them time to be able to at least plan for that. But, I mean, I would say that if the Office of Charter Schools has confidence in the school, that there would be, I would be comfortable making that motion to allow them to do that, given a contingency plan for what they're gonna do if something happens with the delay in construction, and if the state board chooses to do so differently. That's how I'm thinking about it.
My
anyway.
question would be though, would the state board just automatically say no, or would they come up with an alternative? And that would be the only downside, is if they.
They
would
generally
say
just
no.
send it back.
I've never seen them
Yeah, they just
come
send
back
it
with
back.
a alternative. It's either yes or no from a recommendation that you make.
Or they send
I
it
think
back
we need
to
to be
us.
careful
Or send it
what
back.
that recommendation is.
So if it's rejected by state board, they're back to just adding 4th grade this
Correct.
year as a
Right.
natural flow.
Or the state board could send it back to us and say reconsider.
Or I think based on what Mr. Machado is saying, that it may be better for us to
Go
be
with 5,
conservative
6.
now.
Yeah.
You know, and not risk them being denied.
That's right.
I think
and
that's.
Dr. Bott,
if they're
I
gonna-
really think that because they could just say no, and then you only get 4th
Then
grade.
you're done.
I think that going with the more conservative recommendation is more likely to get you an expansion than trying to do the whole thing.
Even the recommendation that I had said a few minutes, or the suggestion I had said a few minutes ago, that's not conservative still. You know,
Yeah,
it's
that's fair.
still a good amount of kids and a good amount of expansion.
I will say too, we're about to hear from Unity Classical Charter School, and this school is coming back because their building was delayed last year. But they were approved last year for a 95% increase from the state board, so just for,
So
there is a history of strong.
what would the math be on the numbers if our recommendation was to add 5, 6?
If I can make a point,
What would
actually,
be
it's
that?
exactly right. The school you get ready to hear that got that large increase was a school that had track record and data.
Yeah.
This school does not have that. And I have nothing but the utmost respect for Tolera, but I'm very, very concerned that State Board of Ed would approve this large of an expansion on a school that has no data.
Particularly with no data.
It's still
They're in their
200,
first year
am I
of
right?
membership.
It's still 207 kids, am I right?
Well, they're guaranteed around 50% of them are siblings, so, I mean, you cut that in half. We're actually really talking about 100 kids that you're trying to find that are, to hit that target. But Lynn's question to Mr. Machado about if it gets, I feel for the school if it just got flat out denied. I would not want that to happen to them because of our recommendation, so I think we really should follow the lead that we've been given with cutting back to 5, 6.
Ms. Vaquero, could I ask a question? If we went to the state board with a more aggressive recommendation and they denied us, when would we know that denial? Would we already have an indication of that at the January meeting? And if so, and we started from scratch again with CSAB, what would that timeline look like?
You might have an indication at the January meeting, but you would not have a final decision until the February meeting.
But if it looked like they were going to say no, that would probably be evident. And at that point, would we be able to withdraw it and resubmit with CSAB as a more modest expansion in the January CSAB meeting to get approved, to get discussed in February and approved in March? Would that timeline work?
I don't see us being able to put it on the agenda if the state board hasn't voted.
Yeah,
Even if they've discussed it and it didn't look favorable, if they haven't voted, I don't see us being able to put an alternative on the agenda until after they vote, which would be February, which would mean the soonest you could come back to us would be March, which would mean it would be May before you could get an approval.
Understood. So we have no ability to just withdraw an application once it's been put forth on the state board agenda?
you can
could
withdraw
withdraw
it. The problem is getting because the state board meetings are so close to the CSAB meetings, there's usually less than a week in between. So and I have to submit the data, I have to submit the materials to state board literally once I finish CSAB the next day. So it's just a very quick turnaround. So although you could withdraw something, there's no for sure that you could get it onto the next CSAB meeting, if that makes sense. Like we might have to wait another month.
I understand.
Okay.
Thank you for clarifying.
I don't want to be in that position where we're sending things to the state board that are, one, tough to defend, and two, that we're even thinking that is going to get, that's not in our interest either as a board to.
Okay, so does somebody want to make a motion?
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
So I feel like that even if we make a motion that's in line with Eric's suggestion, that we're still lacking a contingency plan.
No, I think that needs to be part of
And
the
so-
motion,
Right, and so
part
I
of the motion one
think
way or the other.
a motion would need to include a little definition around that contingency plan. Again, given the time frame, it's not just that there is one. If we're not gonna have the ability to review it and approve it, I think that it's gonna have to somehow be that the Office of Charter Schools blesses the contingency plan, or it's like, there's gotta be some language around that, rather than just having one. It has to be a viable one that's approved by someone.
That
And
that
the
the
due
Office
date.
of Charter School sees it as viable.
Right, I would be okay with that.
Okay,
Can I get a motion?
Don't forget also that they are requesting to change to the National School Lunch Program.
Oh,
So
okay,
just-
but that's an easy,
That's an easy one, just put it in your motion.
yeah,
You want the same motion?
yeah, go ahead.
You all. gonna have to
Your
clean it
turn,
up.
you ready, you
Your
ready,
turn.
you got
I
that.
would do it.
Terry does it. I just let it go to you.
Can we do two separate motions so
That's
that,
fine, yeah.
For the national
school lunch?
yeah, and then do the other
Okay, sure.
expansion of that.
So, make the motion, what's the school's name? Sorry.
Tell her.
Tolera
So it's a
Institute.
bad start. That they are approved for an expansion of up to sixth grade, with the understanding they're gonna submit a contingency plan to the Office of Charter School that needs to be, I guess, approved prior to submitting this to the state.
By what date? Ashley, do you know it?
Let's say,
Can that contingency also include a construction timeline?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Mhm.
let's say December 15th.
Oh, by December 15th.
And that it includes a construction timeline,
Well, they're gonna determine the criteria, right? Or,
but they just said to add.
but it
add-
includes
add-
a construction timeline,
Well done.
among other things that David said. Construction timeline.
Is there a second for that motion?
I would second that motion.
Okay.
It's been properly moved and seconded, any discussion? All right, Ashley, you wanna take a roll call?
Bruce Friend,
Aye.
Todd Godby,
Aye.
Terry Stoops,
Aye.
Lynn Kroger,
Aye.
Cheryl Turner,
Aye.
Rita Hare,
Aye.
Hilda Parlay,
Approves.
John Eldridge,
Approved.
Eric Sanchez.
Aye.
All right, that one was approved. Tolera, so we'll take that to state board. It will be your expansion of 5th and 6th grade, up to 6th grade, and then we'll be in contact about the contingency plan and the construction information. Now we just need another motion for the National School Lunch Program.
I would make a motion to approve them moving to the National School Lunch Program.
I second that.
It's been properly moved and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. Asher?
All right, Bruce Friend,
Aye.
Todd Godby,
Aye.
Terry Stoops,
Aye.
Lynn Kroger,
Aye.
Cheryl Turner,
Aye.
Rita Hare,
Aye.
Hilda Parlay,
Approved.
John Eldridge,
Aye.
Eric Sanchez.
Aye.
All right, that one is also approved. Thank you, Tolera. We will be in touch with next steps. Okay,
Thanks, Ms. Vaquero. Ms. Turner, could I say just one quick word, if that's all right?
Sure, go ahead.
Listen, I know we didn't get everything we asked for today, but I really appreciate the board's thoughtfulness and feedback, and I know that the amendments you've suggested here are in what you believe is going to help our school be successful and go through the state board with higher probability. So just thanks everybody for your support and what you do for charter schools.
Keep up the good work.
Yeah, keep doing what
You're
you're doing.
welcome.
Thank you.
That's what we're here for. We want them to succeed.
Okay, where are we?
all right. The next one is Unity Classical. Okay, so this is an expansion over 30%. They, if you, as you saw in there, hopefully you saw in their cover letter, which I'm gonna pull up. They came before you last year and were approved to expand. It's about a 95% expansion. However, and they were approved through an exception that's in statute. So as we discussed before, there are 5 requirements for over 30% enrollment expansion. One of them is that you are within 10% of your max projection. So again, this is trying to prevent schools from way over projecting. This school last year and this year were not within that. This year it was just an 11%, so they were 1% over. So they normally could not make this request, but there is an exception in statute that allows that requirement to be waived if a enrollment growth is based on a proposed capital expansion of the charter school. And this is the exact same capital expansion that was brought to you last year. They had a building delay, we're not able to get into it, and so they're coming back this year. And the building is, I believe, projected to be ready this next month in January.
So the building's still not ready.
Yes. So this would be a, let's see. This would be an expansion from their max allowable of 294 to 528, which is, oh wait, sorry, that's Tolera. Sorry. Their max allowable of 467 to 700, which would be a 95% increase.
What, is that what they asked for last year too, for something to 700?
Yes.
So what are they talking about?
Or last year it was 245 to 598.
And they are currently at 365?
They currently have, this year they have 245 students, I believe.
And they wanna go to 700?
Yes.
We approved that last year?
Well, last year it was approved, for 598 students. Because I think it was one less grade level. But I have they should be.
And so what grades are they trying to add now?
This year, they have K to 6, and next year they would just be adding K to 7. So they're just adding one grade.
Their regular one grade?
Yeah, they can do that on their own, but they're upping, and I'll show you the chart, they're upping all of the, here we go. So you can see right here, all of the grade levels are basically adding another classroom.
Let me go back to make sure I understand. Did you just tell me they have 290 some kids right now?
Let's see, they
I
have
think that said 345 or 360.
359,
359 is what they have right now?
yeah,
And they wanna go to 700?
yes.
I don't know. Look at, is that 6th grade? They wanna go from 29 to 125?
Mm-hmm.
Any discussion on
That's a big
this?
jump.
How long have they been in operation?
I've been around a while.
5 years.
5 years.
5 years.
And
They
what do
currently are K to six.
what do they look like? What does their academic history look like? I know they're not low performing, but what's the academic history look like?
I don't know if I have that with me right now, actually. Yeah, they've never been low performing. Is there someone from Unity Classical on the line?
Did they just add sixth grade this year?
Yeah, I think so.
29 kids.
The academic.
They just added it this year and only got 29 kids.
So we're gonna pull up
Is
their.
that construction
their-
constraints? And
Right,
because
is
of
that all they
space?
could, yeah, is that all they could house? I don't know.
It might be all they could house.
If they finish construction, I guess those are viable numbers.
These would be good questions to ask them.
Right, that's a good
Do
question.
they have a wait,
If they were
what's their
here.
current wait
And
list?
that's when you don't speculate.
What does FTE mean? On here they have like FTE
Full-time
K5.
employees in my world, but I
Full-time
don't know what it
equivalent.
means here.
Yeah, I'm a little, I don't understand that.
And just looking at, first grade goes from 58 to 110, but the second grade only goes from 51 to 88. What's the difference?
Yeah, and Ashley, did they give any indication what their wait list looks like?
Yes, let me see.
First grade too is not generally a great place to recruit. K is, you can,
Well, look at
You got
kindergarten
your
goes
kid.
from 86 to 132 back down to 88. Am I reading that wrong?
no,
I
that's
know,
what
I
it
wondered
says.
if
Yeah,
they
that's reasonable.
didn't
But you-
adjust those years, or if
Yeah, it
that's
goes
what they
58 to
intend to
110,
do.
110 to 88.
Yeah, that's weird.
Well, they typos.
Yeah, yeah. There's nobody on the phone from them?
Let me see if I can get her. I think
Yeah,
I
cause
can-
there's all kinds of issues with this
Yes.
that I
Looks
just
like
don't
there's a copy
understand.
paste typo or something. 88 to 75 from second grade to.
Yeah, we need answers.
We can, maybe, let me try to get in touch with her and maybe we can postpone this one till later
Okay, that's fine,
in the day.
Yeah.
Because I can't, a lot of these questions she'll have to answer.
yeah.
Okay, we have another one that is also, you also heard last year. And I see Erica on the line. So, this one is an expansion request. This is from United Community School in Charlotte. And so, as we've spoken about today, if a school wants to grow by one grade level, they can do that if they meet certain requirements. If they want to grow by 2 grade levels or more, they have to seek approval. They also have to seek approval if they do not meet those requirements, which are that they have operated for at least 3 years, they have not been identified as continually low performing, or if they've been in financial noncompliance. So this school, United Community School, has been designated as continually low performing. And if you were on the board last year, you probably remember that they came before us, or before you, and requested to grow up to 9th grade. They've been wanting to expand into high school for quite some time now. But because of the last 2 years of no data, they have not had an opportunity to get off of the CLP list. This year and last year, they've submitted a lot of information, which is posted on eBoard regarding their academic data that they have within the school. So, for example, 91% of the students who have enrolled the longest made growth and increased proficiency. 100% of students with IEPs made growth, and 60% of students with IEPs enrolled since 2014 became proficient or increased proficiency.
And what did they say what they used it for that?
Did they say what?
Did they say where that data's coming from?
I believe it's in some of their appendix data, but Erica is here so she can speak specifically to that. They use NC check-ins.
Is this the same school that was gonna start high school but only had 19 kids or something?
Yes, they were gonna start-
So they were gonna do high school mostly online through NCBPS or something?
Yes, it was gonna, and so you gave them a lot of requests and suggestions for coming back. One was improving the, increasing that enrollment, and then also improving parts of the program that were recommended. So they have come back with adding 9th and 10th grade at the same time, and it would be a small class. It would be 26 kids in each grade level. So this would require, that would take them over their MAP CSADM. Their MAP CSADM is 305 for next year, and they are requesting 384. So this would be a request for both the enrollment and the expansion, if you so approve.
And you said their leader's on the phone?
And Erica's on the phone. Erica, do you want to speak to this request and perhaps speak about the changes that you've made since coming last year?
Yes, I'd love to. Thank you, Ms. Vaquero. And hi, CSAB, and hi, Dr. Turner. I just wanted to say thank you for this opportunity to come back this year. Our administrative team and our leaders have taken into consideration all of what was shared the last time we went through the expansion request. You all gave us, different board members gave us feedback, and Ms. Vaquero forwarded that to us. So we've had some time, some months to just review everything and come up with a better plan. And we feel like we have definitely a better, more thought out plan. And we've taken your feedback and applied that into our revised application. So some changes are, well, first I want to say we are going into year 8. So we are not new at this. We were approved in 2014 to operate as a K-8 school. And we chose to start with kindergarten through 2nd grades and grow and expand every year. So last year, we did have to graduate our 8th graders, unfortunately, because we didn't get the recommendation for the 9th grade. So this is our 2nd year having grades kindergarten through 8th. So we are familiar with expansion. We know how to do this. We've been through it before, and we feel like we have a very solid plan. The changes are we will not be relying on the 2 core VPS teachers, as that was in our last plan, based on the feedback, and it made sense, when we reflected. So we are requesting 2 grade levels, 9th and 10th. So we already have the 8th grade class that would be looping up to 9th grade, and then adding 10th grade. And we do have, all those students who would be invited back, but we will also have open enrollment, which we did not have last year. And Dr. Turner, I know from actually touring Sugar Creek and attending a presentation with you that's how your school does it, where like you have a feed in from your K-8, they feed into the high school, so you don't allow new high school students to come. And I really admire that, but last year when we mentioned that we were gonna try to do something similar, that was kind of like it was a negative. So we will do the open enrollment with the high schoolers. So 9th and 10th grade, we would let other applicants be invited to attend. And VPS would be just a supplement for elective classes or like honors and advanced placement courses, but not the core instruction. So this new plan has 4 high school teachers in the budget for the two 9th and 10th grade classes. And we also changed our high school schedule before someone from the board made the comment that it just felt like we were continuing our middle school. So we definitely revised that. We have a later start time, and that's based on research. Our current school K-8 starts at 7:50, and there's research that shows that high schoolers should start at 8:30 or later, so we have a change there with their schedule. And we've included the high school coordinator position. All of the positions fit in the budget with plenty of funding left over. And I just want to also add that we do have the space to be able to make this happen on our current campus. We already have approval from the county to add a 4-classroom modular, and we've expanded to we've had a 4-classroom modular and a 2-classroom modular added to our facility over the last few years. So we've been through that before. We have to say, contacts and stuff. We know how to do it, but we have a 4-classroom additional modular that's already been approved by the county, and we just need the approval from CSAB just to go, basically, to expand. So that would be more than enough classrooms to accommodate 9th and 10th grades for next year.
If you're open to accepting new students in high school, why are you only taking 2?
2 classes, you mean?
No, it looks to me like you're going from, you currently have 24 eighth graders and you're planning to go to 26 ninth graders. So that's like 2 kids.
So no, we are adding 10th grade. So the request is to also add 10th grade. We don't currently have the 9th graders because we had to graduate last year's 8th graders because we didn't get the approval. So they are not in our school anymore.
Well, I'm talking about this year's 8th graders.
Currently, it's 18. That's the projection.
So how many current 8th graders do you have?
We have 18.
Okay, and then you're going to 26, so you'll open it up to 26 in 9th grade.
Correct.
That's still a super small
Why so few?
grade. What about foreign language? I didn't hear you say anything about how you plan to teach foreign language.
So we were told that last year that VPS should be used only for extra like enrichment or a supplement, and so foreign language and like additional electives and honors courses, that could be through VPS.
If your students are interested in attending any of the four-year colleges in the state of North Carolina, they have to have 2 years of foreign language, so that's not exactly an elective, like it's almost kind of part of it, needs to be part of your curriculum.
Well, I know VPS has multiple foreign languages, I just don't know because I'm on that board, I don't want to say anything, whatever, but it's, I know that maybe that's not the best way for all students to learn a foreign language is be online. We use it at our school for, if somebody doesn't want to take French or Spanish, they'll take Russian or Latin or something of that nature, but not a whole core class.
We do have, so last school year when we were mostly virtual, we did have a foreign language company that we used to teach our students, and they did it through Zoom because it was just more convenient, and we didn't want the spread of their instructors who rotated at other schools to bring, possibly bring COVID into our school, so we did it online. So we have the space to be able to offer online. The company offered in person and they offered online, and it was more convenient for us to do it online. The cost was the same, so it would be completely fine and feasible for us to have the company send their teachers in person.
So you said the core classes would be, you'd be hiring 4 teachers, so I'm assuming math, science, social studies, and English.
Yes.
Health and PE for 9th grade?
We have a PE teacher already.
That's gonna serve K9?
K10.
K10.
Okay, K10.
So our current PE teacher is full-time. So we have a full-time PE teacher this year who already has like openings in the schedule for extra planning, and he's also our athletic director. But we are such a small school that we don't even have a full schedule. Like Thursdays, there's like 3-hour block where it's planning and things like that. So it would be very simple to just add 2 more classes, 2 more like 45-minute or whatever the amount of time to accommodate 9th and 10th grade.
Gosh. I still don't have real confidence that they understand high school. It's still a bare minimum high school.
I'm trying to wrap my head around trying to schedule 56 kids with 4 teachers. Not just 9th and 10th. I mean, they're gonna be really, really dinky classes, and
Either that or the teachers are gonna have lots of extra time.
yeah.
Because it's really just one class.
I was about to
Essentially,
say,
you've got one
pretty
class. And so that means all the teachers have 2 blocks of instruction, and
knows what they do with the rest of the day.
Yeah, I'm not feeling very comfortable about them adding high school at this point. I mean, just being able to offer the students what they need at a high school level. I'm not sure I feel confident that that's there.
So, may I ask what exactly you mean by, like, what is missing from our request this time?
Didn't we say a larger enrollment of those kids? Need more classes, more kids.
Can you repeat that? I'm sorry, I didn't hear.
A larger enrollment for each, 9th and 10th. Because it
It does
appears
grow
it's just
over
one
time.
class.
It grows over
It
time,
doesn't really though.
but,
It's 26
well,
kids
the
every
high
year.
school doesn't grow over time.
Right, that's what I'm
The
talking-
middle school, I'm confused.
I mean, that's 1/6 grade. Well, I mean, it's too small.
So what happens to your, it appears that you have
I don't understand.
2 classes of kids until you get to 4th grade, but then you continue with 2 classes, but then that doesn't seem to continue further out. I'm so confused.
So, the, what's on the screen shows next year's projections. So this is with 2 classes for kindergarten through 3rd, because this year there's 2 classes for kindergarten through 2nd. So that's anticipating that we'll still have the 2 classes, and there's currently 1/3 through 5th grade. So 1/3, 1/4, and 1/5. So that's why the projections are for 1 class then. And then we currently have 2 6th grade classes, so that's why it shows next year 2 7th grade classes.
What is your current wait list in the elementary school and middle school?
So we started over because we have enrollment for next year. So we haven't done our lottery yet. That's March 2nd that we'll have the lottery, and then so we're still just accepting students.
So there's no waiting list right now.
Ms. Hedgepeth, did you see any growth this year in your K2, K3 classes? You're in the 30s, you have 33 in kindergarten, 35 in first. Was that growth from last year?
So there was growth this year. So we did lose some students. We actually started with 256 for our ADM, and now we're down at 243. We had a few families to leave with like 5 and 4 siblings, so that knocked our numbers down a bit. And this was after we cut off enrollment October 15th, I believe, and that's just something that we do at the start of our fall break. We cut off enrollment. So we've had people that wanted to join and just were turned down.
Do you have a similar
Because
chart
our
to
enrollment cut
this
off.
for what they currently have?
I'm sorry?
No, it was no.
It was a question for staff, sorry.
The numbers, as we look at what you currently have in each class or each grade level, and we look at your projection for next year, if you want to bring, yeah, there's the current.
There it is, okay.
Some of it is just confusing. For instance, you currently have 26 4th graders, but you project next year to have 2 fewer 4th. We could say that's because you have
Oh, 3rd grade.
23 thirds, so you only anticipate 1 more 4th grader next year. And yet that doesn't correspond to what you projected in other grades. Just where are you getting your projection numbers?
So we max at K through 8, we max at 24 per class. So that's why if it says 23, and we will stop accepting after we hit 24.
Is that because of space?
That's just our model to just try to maintain like a 1-to-12 ratio, since our K-5 classes have a lead teacher and a teaching partner. So there's 2 adults in each class, K through 5. So we like that ratio to be one teacher to 12 students.
So when you look at, when you look at your third year, your ninth grade gets up to 48 students for the first time. So 3 years in, you get to 48 students. I guess the question is, for the first 2 years, just thinking of the high school experience and athletics and clubs and having teachers with a full class of I'm not there, and I don't want to make any assumptions, but can you talk to how that 9th and 10th grade, what does that schedule look like? Because you said you're hiring 4 teachers, you already have a PE teacher. Seems to be a lot of empty space for just that number of kids. And then once you start getting into 48 per class, per grade level, I think it starts to make it a little bit more manageable as far as scheduling goes. But it just seems really, the scheduling and just offerings for students just seems really weird for high school kids in the first couple of years, from my perspective. So, can you explain that?
Okay, let me, give me 1 second to pull up the other chart you're
While she's
referring
doing that,
to.
how many students were they approved for this year?
Let me look at I have to pull up their CS again. They have a 243.
I see that, yeah.
I can pull up what their approval was.
So, Ms. Vaquero, I think they're looking at the expansion amendment chart. Could you put that on the screen, please?
And can you pop up?
See, my concern is looking at your projected enrollment, is I think you would, I would recommend that you would grow your middle school first and get it up to 48, because otherwise, as you move out in the years, you're not gonna be able to sustain your high school. Because, yeah, your 9th grade in 24-25 is 48 students, but then it would drop down to 24 students in 9th grade in 25-26. So
In 2 years, the reason why it's at 48 is because the current 6th grade class is 2 classes. There's two 6th grade teachers, 2 homerooms. So next year they would be in 7th grade, the following year in, you see what I'm saying? Like 7th, 8th, 9th. So that's how the chart goes. It's just taking how many classes we have this year and assuming they're gonna be the same 2 classes and accepting a few new students to make them full at 24. So that's what the chart is showing.
right, and I understand that, but it just doesn't make sense from a standpoint of growing your high school and then having 48 1 year and then it drops down to 24 and then is it gonna be sustained at 24? I just think that'll be really hard to maintain a high school with that number of students. I think it would make more sense to build your middle school so it has 48 in every grade, and then that would flow into high school when you're ready.
So much more manageable.
So eventually, as in the 2025-26 column, as you can see, it's more, the 2 classes per grade level would just keep trickling down each year. So eventually, there would be 2 classes per grade level throughout the whole school.
But your 9th grade in 25-26 is 24. It goes from, maybe it's just a typo or something, but if you take a look at your 9th grade in 24-25 on this chart, it's 48, and then the next year it's 24.
8th grade.
Right, so
And those
that was
20
actually intentional. So next year, because this came up last year, that we only were saying we're gonna ask to add 9th grade, and then some CSAB board members mentioned like, oh, that's such a small high school, what if some students drop? Then it's gonna be down to even smaller numbers. So we put 26 for the 9th and 10th grades as a maximum in case, there's some, they don't show up the first day of school. Like we would at least have 26 students or 26 spots that we would open it up to. So it went down to 24 or 25, which could happen. We just would bump it up a little bit.
Again, look at the 9th grade in 24-25 and then 25-26. You have 48, and then it drops down to 24. I think that's what Lynn is trying to point out to you, that you go from 48 9th graders down to 24. That's going to impact your budget and scheduling and everything else like that. Are you planning to increase that 24 to 48 through the lottery, or is that just a typo that you have on there, or?
Are you talking about 11th grade?
No, if you look at 24-25, 9th grade, it's 48. Then if you jump over to the 9th grade in 25-26, That's, that same column that goes from 48 to 24.
That's because they have the 2 grade levels in 6th grade, like they said, the 2 classes. That's kind of like their almost founding or like type of class that's gonna beef up their numbers. But then prior to that, they don't do that again to 3rd grade, so they're gonna have a gap with their 4, 5, and 6th graders.
Well, that's what Lynn was asking with regard to her, how do you schedule for that and how do you sustain your
That's
high
why I
school
think
for
they need
3
to
years?
increase their middle school to
Yeah,
48.
to get to 48 in the
Yeah,
middle.
I see
Yeah.
what they're doing, I don't think it's right.
It's not
I
reasonable.
think what you're saying is the
Yeah.
more reasonable way to do it.
So they are
Quick point of
currently
clarification.
K-8, is that correct? They're currently K-8, Ashley?
They have 8th and 8th graders, but when you asked the question about them only adding a little bit to 9th grade, she said they were adding 26 9th graders, didn't she?
No, she was taking 18 to 26, so they're
So
at
she's
8.
adding 8. Okay.
6 was the max.
So she's adding 8.
Yeah,
I'm just saying, I have 50 kids per grade level in my high school, 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th. And that to me is about, it's tight already trying to schedule 200 kids inside of a full high school schedule. They're gonna struggle for a while trying to schedule that many kids inside of a
and
school.
then moving from 48 back to 24.
Ashley Dana,
I
enrollment
really think
request.
they need to, I agree with Lynn, they need to work on their middle
I
school,
need
get the
to
middle
hear
school up to
found it.
48 at every grade, and then move into high school. I just don't think this is sustainable.
Naturally.
I don't think you can present a good, I don't think you can present an adequate high school program. I think at a very minimum, they gotta get to 48.
Aren't they also currently low performing?
They still low performing, but only because of, been no data in 2 years?
Yes, they were.
And we did have data, it just wasn't counted.
Yeah.
Because it's not EFG, so we were just frozen, unfortunately.
So your data so the data for last year that isn't really official, what was your data for last year?
So, and this is gonna be presented in a little bit by Dr. Cooper. So it's check-in data. So we were virtual until November, and then we went back virtual in January. And so they did the second check-in for 3rd through 8th graders. That was taken after being virtual. They had to come in to take the test, but it was mostly virtual instruction. And then check-in number 3, the last one, was in April, and that shows that 74% of 3rd through 8th graders grew from check-in 2 to check-in 3.
What was your EOG data for last year?
I would have to look it up. That's not the one I sent. Because of how we started and so much of the year was virtual, the check-in data it just showed what it needed to. So I don't have, in front of me, I don't have the end of grade data.
That's not data that counts, and I get that, but when we're looking at, excusing your current low performing status based on the fact that you didn't have real data, it would be helpful to know how things went for you during the pandemic. And I mean, everybody struggled, there's no doubt about that, but it would be helpful to know. But for me, the bigger issue is because what you're really asking for here is to add the high school. And for me, there's so many problems with the sustainability of the high school that even whatever your data was last year wouldn't be a major contributor to me, because I think they have to get to 48 kids at every grade, at least in the middle school, before they can really plan to have high school that works.
And I want to add that eventually that will happen. As you can see in the chart, it just stops at 25, 26. So eventually there would be 2 classes per grade level, and then 48 for 1st through 12th grade. It would be the 2 classes per grade level that you're referring to. We did add a class in 6th grade this year. So I did want to point out, it's possible for us to it's just a matter of opening up more classes or more spots in our enrollment. Our enrollment isn't until March. And we have in the new classes that will be coming in the modular expansion, we're going to have 2 additional classes. So it's not an issue if that's if you want us to have more numbers, but we do feel like it's going to be a viable program because we have added before, we have expanded each year, and it's like our middle school. We didn't start with middle school. We started with K through 2nd, and now we have a viable middle school. We have 4 classes in the middle school, the 6th through 8th. So it's, I'm not sure, like with the hesitation of having such a small high school, I understand that. But I think that we have families who are with us because of our size, and like each kid is not a number here. We have connections with our students, and it's easier to do that by keeping it small, which is why we don't want to go beyond 2 classes per grade level, even in a high school. That's just been working for us. That's just our model.
I don't think anybody's suggesting you should go past 2 classes. We're saying you should get to 2 classes.
Let me ask it, can I ask you a question? You just said we are gonna get to that. If I'm looking at this right, and there's a chance I'm not, that 6th grade class in 2025-26, you will not be 48 per grade level until they get to be seniors, which then means when you get to almost around a 200 student high school, 48 per class, it won't be the 2030, 31 or something like that. Am I correct in that? If I took this chart and I just put another 5-6 years on it?
Yeah, so that would be, so 26, 27, that 48 would move down to the 7th grade class.
Yeah.
And so like that, unless we just added an additional class sooner, that's not a problem. It's just a matter, we just cut off enrollment at our discretion. We get more students to apply than we have, and we just choose, like the capacity thing. That's us choosing to have 24 students per grade level.
And what we're suggesting is that you should, if you want to add high school, that you should up your middle school to 2 classes per grade to feed your high school. That's exactly what we're suggesting.
Right, so then like this year, I'm saying that that's possible because we're adding 4 more classrooms. We could add or accept 2 classes of 8th graders, because right now we have 1 class of 7th graders. So that's an option. It's not impossible.
But yes, you have to start that though in 4th grade, so that you have those 2 classes moving up every year.
Yeah.
So you have to start it in middle school, and actually
Right,
start in
I
4th grade,
understand.
4th grade, 5th grade, and have that filter up. And you have to start that sooner than later, and that you need to give that a couple of years, then you'll be ready to do high school.
And you haven't seen growth yet, according to what you said about your numbers from last year to this year, so you're currently not experiencing growth. And the academics in the K through 8 need to be strengthened so that the school gets out of that low performing designation. We need to see some good data, so I think you need another year or 2 under your belt to get good strength in the academics before thinking you're going to expand to high school courses.
What were they permitted to add this year?
302 is what I think is the season.
So 243 out of 302 this year.
Yeah, but they were at 256 and now they're at 243.
Oh, they were 256 ADM this year? I know they're 243 now, but they were
But
256.
256 is what they started, but they projected 305?
They projected 302.
Yeah, okay. So we are like super late, you guys, so we really need to,
Make a motion.
yeah, we need to make a motion.
Skip us.
I'm willing to make it.
I would make it, Madam Chair, I feel like we all concur that I move that we do not approve the request for expansion from United Community School.
Second.
It's been properly moved and seconded. Is there any discussion?
I want to point out that the logic that is being provided over the phone regarding, oh, we could just add students and this and that. One, the data isn't supporting it because they didn't meet their ADM, but also that's not the conversation to be had here. It's the fact that you didn't think of that prior and see that your point was they don't get high school. And I think that data provides evidence for that. And I would say to the school, you've got to go back and study high school enrollment, high school budgeting, high school course offerings. I mean, it's a beast, and I've been in it for a number of years, and it's really tough. It's not whether or not you can get the numbers, which still is a question mark. So I just want to indicate that, because I don't want it to go back that, oh, they didn't think we can get the numbers. That's not the point in this.
Any other further discussion? Okay, it's been properly moved and seconded.
Bruce Friend,
Aye.
Todd Godby,
Aye.
Terry Stoops,
Aye.
Lynn Kroger,
Aye.
Cheryl Turner,
Aye.
Rita Hare,
Aye.
Hilda Parlay,
Approves.
John Eldridge,
Aye.
Eric Sanchez.
Aye.
So we're not
All right, Erica, we will be in touch with you.
because right now.
Okay, the next, so Sheila
Do we still have
Reddick is
another
on.
one?
What's that?
We still have another?
Yeah, well, no, Sheila Reddick is on the phone from Unity Classical. So that's the one you had some questions about. I'm gonna pull that up on my screen. And Sheila, can you just explain, the request and specifically, talk about where the building's at in terms of construction and, any academic data you have? And then there might be more questions from CSAP.
Absolutely, and thank you so much for inviting us, because evidently you had a few questions, so I'm very appreciative of the opportunity to clarify anything that you have. How about we start with the building? It's gorgeous. If any of you have gone on our website, we have a video of it up. I had probably been there about every 2 weeks, and we're almost there. Our move-in date is happening over Christmas break, so on top of trying to close out this school year, the teachers and staff are also busy starting to pack everything up to move into our brand new facilities. And hopefully some of you will be able to maybe even make it down, because our ribbon cutting ceremony is set for the 13th. It is 3 stories. Good 18 classes on each level, full-size gym, bathrooms. Kindergarten has restrooms in each classroom. Downstairs is K through 2nd with flexibility to go up. Upstairs is more of that 3rd through 5th, and 3rd floor is more middle school. In case you're unfamiliar with us, our model has been to add a grade every year. So we just push up. So we have lots of room for growth in that 3rd floor. And the first year we move in, we'll still have lots of room, as we won't be filling the whole school. It gives us an opportunity to get to know our building a little bit more, making sure we've got our policies and procedures set for our new facility. But we've had lots of well wishes and lots of people calling and sending emails in the neighborhood. Where we are moving, although it's a little less than 5 miles from here, is very, very heavy packed in family dwellings, and they continue to build, and hence there's an overcrowding in some of the existing schools that are there. So I know a lot of families are very excited that we're moving into that area.
Hey, this is John Eldridge. Thanks for that. Could you explain your numbers on this chart we're looking at? Like
Certainly,
how
and let
they
me pull
go,
up.
they kind of go up and down?
I'm gonna pull up that, I'm sorry, let me get that for you. And let's see. Give me 1 second. Somebody was at my door. Okay, and then you're looking at the Unity budget for the student and staff, John, is that, am I
No,
assuming?
it's it looks like the projection chart. Is that right? What are we looking at?
Gotcha. And where it says for the fall 21-22 classes starts with K, goes through 8th, and it's showing at the bottom 18, then 32, then 37. That's the one, yes?
No,
The last column is current.
it says kindergarten current is 86, and next year it goes to 132, and then the next year it drops back down to 88.
Got you. Yes,
Fifth grade,
yes.
First grade is like 58,
It's the
110.
same one, but you're further down. Got it. Understood. This year, we were hoping to have been in our new building to expect that growth. We are renting in a church. And we are using literally everything. We're like sardines, but I'm very, very, very appreciative because we're open. We could not accept the enrollment that we had wanted if we had been in the new building. Our biggest feedback that we've gotten, the data from last year, throughout the year, people reaching out, the phone calls, we've noticed our biggest demand right now is kindergarten. And so for next year, we want to respect the data that's coming in, what our families and our new community need. So we met with a bigger number for kindergarten, whether, however many that is. That being said, our overall model, we want to get back to doing our best to get to only having 4 classes per grade. So we understand that if we accept more than that, that would be a rolling number going through the school, but our attempt is to try to get to more of what we would like of a 4 per grade per,
Are you planning for attrition or something? Because it's like that when they're in kindergarten, there's 132, but when you move them down to first grade, it changes to 110.
We are planning on attrition. We're in North Carolina. You usually have that anywhere from 20%. So I always like to have that built in to be ready as we're staffing and looking forward. We are a school that is also interested, and the board's interested in building that high school. So we want to make sure that that attrition rate is there so that we're working with true numbers as we move up and up should that high school come to fruition.
Why just kindergarten and, second grade have the built-in attrition? Every other grade doesn't.
Probably because they would be moving up, and as they moved up, does that make sense?
No.
So your kindergarten goes
So
from
if we
132
accept
to
them in the
110.
front end, and those are more in those, then as they move up, those would be where most of the attrition would happen.
No, you have 132 to 110, but then in first grade, they don't lose a single student, 110 to 110. But then second graders go from 88 up to 100.
I think that's because they're
then
rolling, it's
75
rolling
stays.
through. Does that make sense?
Which is it?
You would have to enroll more students when your second graders go to third grade to get from 88 to 100, going from fiscal year 23 to fiscal year 24.
It just looks like you're removing 22 students from your kindergarten enrollment from one year to the next.
Yeah, I guess it's all kindergarten.
It's kindergarten, so I don't know if that's a typo or what, but your second year it goes from 86 to 132, but then when those kindergartners go from 132, there's 22 that disappear. I'm just getting stuck on a fine point, I guess, but I just.
Right, because the goal is ultimately to have 4-4-4. So this doesn't mean, obviously, we all know it's not necessarily where it would be, but the goal is to try to, as those larger grades that you might accept at the beginning roll through, we're going to be doing our best to get down to four grades, classes in each grade. Does that make sense? So then it would go to 5, then that 5 might go down to 4. So as you're building in that attrition and that student body is rolling through and moving up in the grades, the classes left behind, you're trying to get to 4-4-4. And as that attrition happens, you wouldn't replace in those bigger classes. And that's why the numbers fluctuate. Does that make sense?
I think it would make more sense to me if it went from 86 to 110 and then it stayed 110 the whole way through. I build up a waiting list because it looks to me like you're going to say, well, we want to get down to 4 classes, so we're going to lose 22 kids. And once you have them, you can't just lose them.
Yes, obviously, and that is true. Although I will say where we are, we do have a higher, it's very transient here. And I think because of the banking industry and the airlines industry, so usually we don't show those numbers much because we still allow in. But if we're taking so many in, we don't want to maintain 6 kindergarten classes or 5 kindergarten classes Hence, that's like when you look at that K class, why it's like 88, 132, 88, 88, 88. We're trying to maintain 4. However, when you take them in that next year, if we do get 132, right? Well, we probably will lose some, and if we don't open that up, if we don't open up any seats, then the next year would be around, from our past data, we're thinking around 110. And then we just try to keep that 110, and we recognize that maybe in a few years later from that, we're not opening up, now we might be down to 100. You know, we might lose those 10 kids, providing we're not still opening up maybe that seat if we've got 4, 4, 4, 4. And that's the goal, is trying to maintain 4, 4, 4 for all of our grades. So once you get there, you open up those seats for if anybody leaves, but always trying to maintain that 25 basically in a class-ish.
So the goal is to get to 100 at every grade, yes?
Yes. Well, depending on the grade. Like, actually, we have them smaller than that in our lower grades, 25 for the higher grades.
So what is your current wait list?
18 to, oh, sorry. Sorry. Go ahead.
What does your current wait list look like right now? I mean, you're gonna be able to add 100 students in 6th grade?
We're at 50, because we have 125. Our wait list now, I'd have to pull that up for you right now, so I'm gonna give you guesstimates, but we can pull that up for you. I'm sorry, we didn't realize we were speaking today. But I can get you those numbers. Our lottery has not opened. We do feel confident that we can get that 700 number. At this moment, I think our data would show that our K through 2nd grade is much heavier than initially thought from our middle school. But 6th grade seems to be big because, and I think we have, I don't even want to guess right now because I don't think that's fair, but I do know we have families reaching out because they didn't want to go, and I for no ill respect to the public school here, many families are looking for an alternative to the CMS middle school because it's very overcrowded right now. And that's why we tried to build in bigger numbers for 6th grade specifically, because that's the year that we find more people coming in than, let's say, maybe a 5th grade, because it's the appropriate time to maybe change to a middle school.
What's their current ADM?
We're at 367. It's not where we did have a larger wait list, but we closed it down because we could not fit any more students here. Hence, that's why we had that 423, but we could not fit 423 into the school building. We could only accept so we kept all of our existing students. We are open at basically 367 students.
Okay, and so you anticipated that you would, with the expansion, had the expansion been ready, you would have been able to take 426.
I actually think we would have been able to take more than that, but that was more of our accurate numbers at that time because we had people that were pulling out or saying thank you, but no thank you, we want to come to you next year. So they're in our marketing, and they've been on our newsletter and things of that nature because they could tell, we could too, that the building just would not be ready, or they were nervous that it wouldn't be ready, so they started pulling out over the summer. So that's how we got down to the 423.
Okay, so you have 360 something is what you started this year with, right?
Correct.
And you are asking to go to 700 next year. Essentially, you want to double the school.
Correct.
Any discussion?
And that 700 is to make budget for your capital campaign?
Correct. It's a beautiful building, but unfortunately it comes at about 19 million, not including everything else. But it's a 3-story gorgeous building on the hill that all of those families see. We've actually had to ask parents to let them know we're not giving tours on the new building right now, and we've had people come out and take pictures, and we've secured marketing, and we've begun our marketing campaigns, and a lot of preschools have asked us to come and tour and start talking about the new school opening up in the area. Churches, we've got a lot of communities reaching out, so that's a very good sign for us, and I'm excited. So I think it's very doable.
At the risk of you repeating yourself, if I'm looking at 22, 23, knowing now that you need the 700 to meet your budget, and basically knowing that you went through the exercise of saying, we need 700, how do we beef up these grades? Can you walk us in a little bit of the discussion of how you chose those numbers?
Beef up those grades?
Because I'm looking at some grades that need 100, some that need 15, and I'm guessing, I can guess, but how did you?
Yeah, so oh, I'm sorry.
No, just each grade, like 132 kindergartners, and then, how did you do this?
So typically, we're much heavier in people wanting to come in K through second for us. There was one year where we had a huge wait list in third grade, but mostly it's kindergarten through second grade. And quite frankly, that's where I would prefer to have them, because we are a classical school, and with our classical model, it's easier for us. So we'd much rather accept them at those younger grades to get them accustomed to our paradigm and method and model of teaching. And then as we're moving them up, they go through, as you can see on this graph. We don't normally accept quite as many as they get higher, because I think too, by then families, are looking for a certain curriculum, and we recognize that we go to a certain bent. I think as you get into those higher grades, the transition can be higher. You're not always just giving answers, right? And when you're used to the Socratic method, so it's very easy for little ones to get in there. As you get higher and higher, it gets a little harder. We do start all of our special classes in kindergarten, so they're getting that music, they're getting that foreign language and stuff. So when somebody came in at 5th grade, it's just more difficult. Not that doesn't happen, it does, but I think parents look at it a little differently, and they acknowledge that. So that's why those lower grades tend to be beefed up as far as numbers, more so. And that obviously then the attrition that you see that we built into it is in there as well, because we understand that we can't always accept maybe as many, there's not as many kids maybe that would be wanting to come in 5th grade as opposed to, let's say, in 1st grade. Does that answer your question?
Okay.
Yeah, that's good for now.
We really, you guys, we are super, super late. Like over an hour late, kind of super late. So, any discussion on this particular amendment?
I just don't get it, but
I don't feel comfortable with the way these projections are in here, and I don't understand them, and I didn't really get good answers on how many are on a wait list for in total or in grade. I don't feel comfortable supporting this.
And I just don't understand the whole rationale. The numbers seem to go up and down, and if what we're trying to get to is 25 kids in a class, eventually, why from 132 down to 110 and then stay in
So that would be, yes, that's the goal, is your 25, let's for ease, let's say 25 in a class, although those younger grades do have less students, but let's just say 25 per class, okay? We recognize our very first year of opening, most of the kids or families that are reaching out to us right now are in kindergarten and 1st grade. So we're going to take more than we normally would to make that 700 number. But the following years, we would want to only stick with those 4 classes. That grade, the reason why it's going up and down is you're going to see where we currently are, our first year, where we really are right now. Then it moves up with that big, maybe more kindergartners, more first grade, more sixth grade, because that's what we're seeing right now. When we put it out, the interest, that's where most of our families were coming in. They were interested in kindergarten, they were interested in first, and they're interested in sixth. Now, we want only 4, but if we have to hit 700, then we're willing to accept more and then just roll that large student body through the years, because we're not going to let them go, right? They're our students, they're part of our family now. So they will roll through every year, going to the next grade up on a whole. And then if they leave, you just aren't opening up that seats. We want to try to maintain those 100 kids, if possible, in each grade.
I have a question for the Office of Charter Schools. Did they add 6th grade this year? When did this?
We did have 6th grade this year.
Okay, and so you were able to add 29 students this year when you opened 6th grade?
Correct.
But you anticipate enrolling 75 next year?
Correct. We just didn't have the room this year. We're literally meeting in multi-purpose rooms, and we've rented every space that we possibly could in this church, but we just couldn't take anymore.
So you're currently renting a church, and so your church rent, how does that compare to this mortgage payment, or I guess lease payment, lease to buy, that you will have on the new building? Or how much are you increasing your cost?
Substantially. We're
so
about 30,000
you've already committed to that,
a month.
right? You've already made the commitment whether this is approved or not.
Right. And we had
What
to
was
take
your
that.
plan if it's not approved?
Right?
What is your plan if it's not approved?
Go back to the builder and let them know, and then they have the right under the contract to turn around and not let us move in and try to find a different school or do something different with the building.
Mm-hmm. It's concerning that a school with 29 at 5th and 29 at 6th, that you're going from renting a facility to a $19 million building. It was a big leap with no commitment for...
Who's on the hook for that building if it doesn't go through? I mean, you said the building, who's on the hook? Is it the school that's on the hook, or who's building this? I mean, who's paying for the construction?
Right now, it's Performance Charter. They built other schools in the area, so they're backing it up. Obviously, it's us.
So you're gonna be paying rent to them until you're not really paying the mortgage on that. You're gonna be paying rent until you can afford a mortgage, correct?
Correct. So we're paying the rent, and then with that option to buy, obviously after so many years, and to buy them out.
It's a
and,
7%. 7%, is that what your rent will be? 7% of the total cost?
I'm not 100% sure as far as percentage goes. That sounds about right. It might be 6. I'd have to work those numbers out for you.
How many 6th graders did you turn away because of your space?
25 to 75. I would say, and I'm sorry I don't have my enrollment specialist here. Like I said, we weren't prepared for this today, but I apologize. I'd say anywhere from 27 to 35. It was rolling. As they started pulling out, I guess, it depends on, do we look at the peak of where we were, or, who stayed on after we opened.
So essentially,
you could see a market when it was more apparent that we would not be moving into the building and we were going to be housed in the church. We definitely took a pretty nice hit to enrollment.
You would be adding 7th grade this year anyway, the natural flow of your middle school, right? You added 6 this year. Next year you'd be adding 7.
So next year that would be our 7th grade, so that would roll up.
So you're basically asking to increase the numbers at each grade level.
Correct.
Adding the seventh would be the natural flow of the
Exactly.
growth.
I'd like to make a suggestion. I would like to make, we're really behind, so I'd like to make a suggestion that we table this. We've got a ton of questions. That we table this, that they get with the Office of Charter Schools, get the projections in a place. They weren't expecting to have to speak today, so they didn't have an opportunity to have all their information available. That they get with the Office of Charter Schools about what information we would like to see and have them come back next month.
Yeah, Cheryl, this is Bruce. I agree with that. I was going to say the same thing. I think that if there's not an urgency that we have to vote today, that SPS work with them on these projections.
They're moving into the building next week anyway, next month anyway, one way or the other, so,
I think that works to their favor, because I don't know that too many people here were comfortable yet until we see more information.
so if I could get a motion to do that?
I make a motion that we table this presentation and have them come back in a month to clear up any questions that we have, that we can communicate those questions to the Office of Charter School, get those answers, and have a little bit more clear discussion next time.
Second.
It's been properly moved and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Okay, that's the plan.
All right, Sheila, I will get in touch with you.
Thank you, everybody. I appreciate your time and consideration.
Thanks, Sheila. Okay, we have Veritas Charter School, and I believe they're here in person.
Okay, we have not had a bio break since 9 o'clock this morning, so if we could take just a 10 minute, let's say 10-minute bio break right quick, please. All right, thank you. I think Veritas is here to present as, just to give us an update on what they've been doing as a low-performing school as they're moving towards getting out of that. So,
good morning. My name is Michael Silver. I'm the head of schools at Veritas Community School. This is Erica Bowen, our board chair, and this is Ed Ritter, our vice chair. And we appreciate the time this morning allowing us to come and speak with y'all and kind of share some of the good things that have been going on at Veritas this school year, over the past few years. Perfect. So the academic data that you have in front of you is all based off of MAP testing. And what you'll notice is the class of, so you're looking at our class of 2029 would be our current third graders and so forth. And the thing that we wanted to highlight is even though everybody's been going through a tough time, we did see some really good growth throughout the majority of our school. And you'll notice the spring 21 and then the corresponding data is for fall 2021. That is because the bulk of our instruction, what we would consider consistent instruction, occurred at the end of the school year whenever we didn't have a bunch of rotations going on. We were able to go without rotation for a good majority of our population. We were able to provide some consistent instruction over the summer through our summer instruction, and then we delayed some of our MAP testing at the beginning of the year to be able to get some more instruction in. So we saw big jumps with our students going. So you'll notice the class of 2029, we had 33% of our students were in the 41st percentile or higher, and in the fall of 2021, we had 61% of our students that were now in that category. And so those were, you'll highlight those big jumps that were made. You'll notice that the class of 2027 has the percentile that we highlighted was the 21st percentile or lower. We noted that number decreased in both reading and math because that group was one of our lowest groups. That group had the majority of the students in the red, as a lot of us would refer to them. And we saw a drastic jump of students jumping from there up into the 22nd and higher, majority of them falling in between the 22nd and 41st. So
what's your current grade configuration?
Say that again?
What's the current grade configuration?
So we have our K6 is one class per grade level, and then our 7th and 8th is a combined homeroom of 7th and 8th grade. Okay, and then the one, and I'll note it, the class of 2026, we did not see regression, but we did not see growth as well. We have struggled with some of our middle school students as far as attendance, and we've had some transient behaviors that have occurred just within our community, but as a whole, school-wide, we did see that growth throughout.
Mr. Silver, how is class of 2029 the current third graders?
So we just did the math based on like when their graduation would occur. So it's
graduation from high school.
Yes, ma'am.
Oh,
yeah. So it's just following them through. Yeah. So the reason that we did it that way is just trying to. Whenever you look at data charts and it's like, all right, we got to follow this third grade class when they're in fourth grade in the corresponding year. We just kind of group them based on graduation year, just for easier.
So help me out of the numbers. If you're third grade, they finished third grade in 2022, right? So in 7 years, how are they graduating high school?
We may have got the numbers mixed up whenever we were but it's our current third grade students. So okay. it's the current. It was the third graders last year, and now the fourth graders this year. So it's moving them in that fashion. My
so
apologies
each row
for the
is
typos.
third, fourth, fifth, sixth.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. All right. In May of 2020, whenever I became the head of schools, one of the big pieces that was a struggle was our enrollment. We retained 72 students of 101 at the end of the school year. Whenever I first started, the goal was to just get a pulse points and a real number on what we would have. Over the summer, we did a phenomenal job of becoming a community school again and connecting with the community that we reside in. So we started the school year with 128, and we continued to enroll, and we ended the school year with 145. We retained 97 students from last year. We lost a couple of our middle school students. That was where we saw the biggest exodus of students, and that was due to just the inability to offer some athletics and a couple of those offerings of that nature. So we lost some of our middle school, but we were able to start the school year at 150. Our CSADM for coming into this year, we projected at 156, and we missed it by 6 students. And so similar to last year, we hit our projection. We were supposed to be 134. We ended up at 128. So the consistency there of coming very close to our projection is something that we have contributed to the getting back into our community and getting involved. And so, for instance, this past 2 weeks, we've been in multiple parades and different things going on in Charlotte, just so people know that we're here, just so that people know that we're a part of our community and giving back. All right, for the finances, the one thing that you'll notice in the 1920 school year, our revenue is less than our expenditures. And that is something that we have been extremely diligent in making sure that we don't have happen again. So in the 2021 school year, we were at a little over 1.8 in revenue, and we spent under 1.8 for the school year. We were extremely conservative in our budgeting and in our staffing to ensure that we did not bite off more than we could chew enrollment-wise. There was a lot of unknowns with everything going on with the pandemic, and if we were going to benefit enrollment-wise or whether we weren't. As a school, I feel as though we did benefit a little bit because we were able to provide options that the schools around us were not able to provide. So we saw an increase in enrollment, and I do contribute it to our offerings based on just the landscape that we were living in due to COVID. And then the families that we retained, a lot of them shared that it was due to the fact that we were flexible, that we provided support, that we were there whenever they needed us during COVID. This year, you'll notice that our budget is up again a little bit because our enrollment is up. And we're projected for our expenditures to come in under our expected revenue again this school year. This past year, we were awarded a $50,000 grant for a Lou Interactive Gym. One of the pillars of our school is incorporating movement into instruction. And we have been diligent in realigning ourselves back to our mission and what our charter says that we do. So you'll notice that whenever we get to the action steps, we have really simplified the things that we're doing to make sure that it's what we have actually set out to do. So in the acquisition of Lou Interactive Gym, that is a very up-to-date, innovative piece of equipment that has centered itself around incorporating movement into academics, which is everything that we do. And so we're putting our money into what our mission states that we do. That grant was awarded to us from the Challenge Foundation. I'd be remiss to not share that the Challenge Foundation was there for us whenever we had 101 students finish in a school year and retain 72. Without the Challenge Foundation and their financial support through some of our hard times, we would not have been able to stand in front of you today. They have been a huge supporter, and as we talk in going forward, and as our enrollment has increased and our academics have continued to improve growth-wise, we've already had conversations about what long-term looks like, and the Challenge Foundation has leaned in to be a partner with us in moving forward and what our growth looks like. Another big component for us is the board donations and contributions. Our goal last year was to raise $75,000, and our board came under just a little under at $67,000. That was the first year that the board raised that kind of money. There, in any fashion prior, there was very little, but it's just a perfect representation of the support that our board has put forward and making sure that as a school we have everything that we could possibly need. To date, we have $40,000 that are pledged to be donated to the school by the end of January. So, and our goal for this year is to raise another $60K from the board. So we're right on track for those items to hit target. The goal that I kind of wanted everyone to see out of this is we're being very conservative in our approach and making sure that our every dollar goes as far as it possibly can, but we're also committed from the top down. Our board has been around and tried to solidify itself, as well as solidifying in our administration on campus. Ms. Bowen has been, this is your 4th year, and Mr. Ritter?
2.5 years.
2.5 years. So the goal here is for us to not just talk about consistency, but actually live it on a daily basis. Staffing. The goal here was for us to build a solid culture where people would want to work, where it's a got-to place to work, not a it's a get-to place, not a got-to. We want people to want to be here every day. Last year, we had 12 staff members that were not instructional staff members that returned. Out of 18, we had 13 instructional staff members, and out of those, we retained 10. So whenever you're looking at our school, we're not a very large school. So whenever you look at 77% and 67% as retained, it can be kind of skewed, but it's because of the fact that we only have 13 instructional staff members. So we were very, very proud of the fact that we retained that level of staff from last year. Currently, we're still kind of searching for some consistent subs. I feel like that's across the board of finding quality subs. An EC assistant, we still have that position available, but at this point, we just haven't been able to find the right fit. One of the things that we've done as a school is we make sure that whenever we hire somebody, regardless of position, that they're the right fit for our students and our school. So we're still searching pretty diligently for that. Moving forward, the idea is that we want to be able to start building our instructional staff and adding coaches and interventionists, and people that will help build the capacity within our building. We have some very capable instructors at our school, but as our mission is very specific, we need people that can provide very specific support, and the only way we can do that is through being able to add those level of supports at the school. So that's an addition that we're hoping to be able to add in the upcoming school year. What you'll see on the right is a breakdown of kind of what the transitions were from last school year into this school year. So last year we had an assistant principal. Our numbers are just, we're not a big enough school to continue that level of leadership, so we've realigned that into a Dean of Students position. We were able to, our Dean of Students has a very vast background, and we were able to roll some of the guidance counselor roles into that position as well. As all of you know, small charter schools, everybody wears multiple hats. So we were able to kind of restructure and realign some of those pieces so that we could make sure that our students didn't feel any letdowns in the loss of a guidance counselor or in the loss of other components from our school. We were able to make some very strong hires over the summer. One of the things that we did do is we did add a foreign language. Our family shared that there was a desire for that. We're hearing now that there's a desire for some kind of arts, some kind of music or band of something of that nature. So I anticipate that being something that we report out in the upcoming years, is that we've added those areas as well. And then lastly, we have our plan of action. So you'll notice under academics, we're getting back to the basics. We've tried to simplify a lot of what is being done and focusing our efforts into what data we're collecting, why we're collecting it, how we're using it, as well as one of our other key pillars of who we are is our social, emotional, and peaceful classrooms and restorative practices being utilized in the classroom. So everything that you see up there, we're strategically providing professional development to make sure that it is being something that we practice every day in our classrooms, and that it's not just something that we hang up on the wall and say that we do. And then whenever you look at the retention piece, we're focused on our staff. We're focused on making sure that they have the support they need, as well as whenever you look at enrollment, we're trying to make sure, everybody knows it's easier to retain students than it is to recruit students. So we're trying to make sure that all the students that we have in-house feel as though this is their school, this is a place that they can call home, and then we're leaning back into our neighborhood to make sure that they know that we are an option for them, as well as we're kind of venturing out into some of the outskirt areas around our school to make sure people know that we're there. We reside in a CMS building that's a very neighborhood feeling school, and if you don't know we're there, you're not going to find us. So we're trying to get back out and get back in so that people know that we're there. Any questions?
I don't have a question. I'd like to make a comment. I'm really glad to see, particularly moving back to tying yourselves to that original charter.
one of the things that we were really excited about when this school first applied was the tie to the movement, and that nobody else was doing that. And so I'm very glad to hear you're moving back in that direction.
Thank you, and so are our families. That was whenever we looked at our surveys over the summer. The parents said they chose our school because of our mission, because of the movement piece, and so our parents have echoed everything that you just said.
And I understand part of our summer we spend strategic planning, and the core of that is the charter. We go back to the charter offerings, and we're sequencing different programs because you can't do everything all at once to make sure we're reinforcing that original mission.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Especially for coming this long way.
Mr. Turner, I could say that I have visited this school several years ago. I think we did board training, and their board chair is employed by Community School Davidson, so they got some good blood in their work. And we appreciate how much work you've done to turn the school around. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you guys for having us.
Okay, so, Ashley, I guess I kind of need some guidance. Let's just say that we shot this agenda all the way out of the water, is beside the point. So, what are we gonna do?
We're gonna go straight into renewals.
We're gonna go straight through it just late?
Yep.
Okay,
The fact that Alexis and Shirley
Are here,
we need
yeah.
to honor their schedule.
okay. All right, so, is it with Dr. Cooper, or what's it, okay.
Dr. Coop is going to make the presentation, and this will be your initial presentation on the schools that are up for renewal and where our recommendations are. And it was brought to our attention that Three Rivers renewal, they're actually only in their 4th year, not their 5th year, so we're going to be pulling them out of this cohort, and they'll be up for next year's renewal, okay? And you have this booklet in front of you. When you have time, go through it. Dr. Cooper and her team put this together, and this is a presentation that we made to State Board last week. Some great information in this book.
Thank you.
Should I remove this? Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
I'm going to, so just as a reminder about today, you don't have to make any decisions today. Today is the run-through just so that you can see what schools are in front of you, what their attributes are, contributory factors, and we do have financial business services here. But then in the month of January, you would invite any school that's not going to be up for 10 years to come in and speak before you or virtually to speak to you, and then you will have your discussions and make your decisions to move forward, okay? All right, so we'll just start from the top. Today we will discuss 26 charters that are renewing. The first 10 schools that you'll see in the presentation, and let me not skip over legislation, that's very important. The charter renewal process is governed by state board policy, statute, and administrative code. And our purpose of being here is to ensure that any school qualifying to renew their charter is able to do so. If you see the general renewal guidelines before you, this is the tool that we use to place schools for terms. And here's the list of the 2020 charter renewal schools. So the first 10 schools that you'll see, these are 10-year placements. They have no significant compliance issues, and in this group, there were no compliance issues. They have financially sound audits for the last 3 years. Their academic outcomes are comparable to the LEA, and they have either met or exceeded growth. Beargrass Charter School is in Williamston, North Carolina, opened in 2012. Their current enrollment is 416. You'll see the grades that they are approved for and that they currently serve, and no major board or staff turnover to discuss. If I'm going too fast, please slow me down.
Good.
Corvian Community School, Charlotte, North Carolina, opened in 2012. They are an independent board. No compliance issues. Their enrollment is 1298. Consistent board and staff activity. Up next, we have Cornerstone Charter Academy, Greensboro, North Carolina, opened in 2012. It's a Team CFA, a Challenge Foundation supported school. No compliance issues with an enrollment of 1323. Again, consistent board and staff activity. Northeast Carolina Prep is in Tarboro, North Carolina, opened in 2012. They are an independent board. They do not have any compliance issues. Enrollment is 910, and these are the grades that they are approved and serve. Phoenix Academy, which actually has 3 schools, but it's under one LEA. They're in High Point, North Carolina, opened in 2000. Their foundation is 7 Degrees of Change Foundation. No compliance issues listed. Their enrollment is 1177. And remember, some of these numbers could have changed very slightly between the time of recording this and them coming before, if a school were to come before you. Consistent board and staff activity. The next school is Research Triangle High School, Durham, North Carolina. They opened in 2012. It's an independent board, no compliance issues. Their enrollment is 579, and they currently serve 9 through 12. There have been some leadership changes in the last 2 years, but nothing significant or red flag. STARS Charter is in Vass, North Carolina, opened in 1999 with an independent board, no compliance issues, enrollment 745, currently serving grades kindergarten through 12, and consistent board and staff activity. Up next, we have the Academy